Great. Thank you so much. Such a privilege to be with all of you today. And I remember years ago that I was in your seat, really thinking about what I wanted to pursue in terms of early childhood. And so I understand the journey that many of you are on. Some of you are already in positions and getting additional units. Some of you are getting your units and looking forward to getting in an amazing position there. So, thank you so much for joining us in relationship to our child development program. And it's such a privilege to be able to work for the commission. Want to give a shout out to our administrator, Renee Marshall, who's on today. And she's here just to support and to represent the commission too as well. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. Can you see my screen and presentation? Okay, awesome, wonderful. So again, thank you for coming. We are going to talk about the child development permit, currently where it's at with our current permit, and then some of the changes, upcoming changes that we anticipate in the future. But the title is very apropos. Now is the time because this is a time of transition for us in the field. And we just really welcome those who have not obtained their child development permit. We're going to talk to you a little bit about the timeline. And so we want to be sure that you understand where we're at in terms of this particular transition. So here we go. The plane is lifting off here. All right. So, in terms of our child development history, the child development permit is a permit that the commission authorizes, very similar to a credential, but it's different in nature. That it allows an individual to be able to work in a state subsidized program, um, to be able to work at various function levels as an assistant, associate teacher, teacher, the master teacher, as well as site supervisor and program director. And so it also is an option for those that work in programs that are not subsidized by the state of California. So those that are subsidized, it is a requirement, the teaching level and directing level, to have a child development permit. And we are really excited about the work that continues to go on in relationship to the permit. So it's really that foundational reference. This permit was developed in 1993, if you can imagine. So it's been a while since we have made any changes to the permit matrix. So the school age emphasis was added in 2002. And as I mentioned, I kind of called out those permit levels. There are six currently permit levels for the child development permit in that. So all permits are valid for 5 years. And I do want to emphasize if you've earned a permit, you have rights to that permit. So, but in order to be able to continue to have that live or renewed, there are professional growth hours that are required as a part of the permits, and you'll see all of the levels that are listed there. So all of them require professional growth hours, and the number of those hours is 105 within that 5 year period of time. And this presentation you'll have access to, and there are worksheets here that you can go in and verify what those requirements are too as well. We also have this information on our CTC website. So if you want to give reference to that, as you move forward and checking out the permits and knowing exactly where we're going in the future. So the early childhood education units, we describe those core units in three particular areas: child growth and development, child, family, and community, and then programs slash, which is and or curriculum. So there are particular levels that do require those core units in ECE. And so if you're new to the field, you want to really consider taking those courses first because they really create the foundation for an understanding of young children. And they a lot of times are the prerequisites for like a practicum course or adult supervision course or any other courses that are a little bit more advanced. And so that's something that you want to start with in there. So these must be completed a minimum of 3 semester units in each one of these core areas for particular levels of the permit, and I'll mention those, and then or 4 quarter units in each of the core areas, and that must be a grade C or higher. So this document might be something that looks familiar to you. If you're new to early childhood education, you may not have seen this. This is developed by the CDTC, which is the agency that really assists. They also are the agency that work directly with our CAP alignment project, as well as assisting folks in getting their permits, filling or submitting those applications. And there at times is funding available for those that are wanting to apply for a permit. And so this particular document matrix really outlines those 6 levels. You'll see them in the left-hand column as you go down. The education and experience requirements for each one of those levels is noted here, and various options. And then alternative qualifications are also listed there. The authorizations, what that level authorizes an individual to do within a classroom setting or a program setting, and then those 5-year renewal requirements. And so if we look at the assistant level, there are those foundational units that are required that are 6 units. And if we look at the associate teacher level, those are foundational units or core units that are required, as well as the teacher and the master teacher, and also site supervisor and the program director. So those core units are really essential for those that are thinking about applying for a permit or interested in going to the next level in relationship to the permit. So as we think about the permit holistically, we want to make sure that that the child development permit is really in line with our core documents at the state level. And so one of the core documents that the state came out with in 2020 was called the Master Plan for Early Learning and Care. And this was a part of a grant, federal grant that California applied for to develop what is that master plan for early childhood. And if you have been in early childhood for any length of time, you'll understand that we have lots of different programs. We have programs that are subsidized by the state. We have programs that are not subsidized by the state. And we also have family home programs. So we have lots of different programs in relationship to providing care and services for young children. And so a lot of the states really applied for this grant because, again, we look at a system that is multi-layered. And so the master plan really called out, what is our goal as a state? What do we want to accomplish when it comes to early childhood education? And so that master plan document is really critical. And within that document, there really was the transition to a competency-based system of preparation and licensure for the early childhood workforce because of universal pre-K and also the K through 3 ECE specialist instruction credential, that there were a lot of changing parts since this permit was developed in 1993. And so the state called out, the need to look at going to a competency-based system. And what do we mean by that? It means that typically an individual that works with young children, they take coursework and they pass that coursework. And so what the state was saying is, in looking at the competency-based, is let's look at what are the knowledge, skills, and dispositions that individuals need to have for various levels of the permit. And based upon those those competencies, how are folks doing with that? And so when we look at the permit work, we also look at, yes, there is coursework involved, but also we have what we call our performance expectations that are individual domains and elements that really help our early childhood workforce understand better, institutions understand better of what is needed to be embedded within coursework to ensure that folks can meet those competencies in that. So there was a lot of work, there's been a lot of work at the state level to really unpack those competencies. And we really want to be able to meet the changing needs of the early learning and care programs and landscape that may require or offer as an option the child development permit. So as we are looking forward and looking at some of the revisions to the permit, those are questions that we want to ask. What are those core competencies that are essential for our early childhood workforce in that? So we did engage in some work where we got together a work group throughout the state. We had 28 members. They applied. We had about 100 applications. We selected about 28 members that were on a work group, and we met from 2023 to 2024, so a little over a year. And so we met about 8 times, and we discussed our current permits. We had presentations. We also um, really engaged those that were on the work group, engaged in activities to really help us to understand better where the permit levels were, where is the workforce now, and what are the needs of that. And so the goal for the work group was to bring forward recommendations to the commission. So those recommendations were presented to the commission in 2023. And the commission asked us to be able to go back to the field and to go back to our ECE workforce and to do a survey to find out if our ECE workforce really agreed with those recommendations from the work group. And so that was presented in February of 2025. There's an agenda item link 4B that indicates what the results of that survey was. And we have very positive results from our ECE workforce. And so as a result of that, the commission approved the recommendations from the work group. And then the next step was to really work on the regulations, because once that's approved, it goes into regulations, and there's a whole process that the state goes through in being able to approve those regulations, which we're in right now. Also, our performance expectations, which I just discussed, those competencies, ensuring that the commission those were presented to the commission, and then there was an agreement in relationship to that, and there was a survey also in relationship to the competencies, and the results were very positive. So that agenda item for 2A and 2B for each one of those items were presented in December of 2025 to the commission in that. And so the commission has authorized us to move forward to submit our package to the Office of Administrative Law, which is the state's regulatory process or journey for things to go in regulation. So what were the changes that we're looking at in terms of the child development permit? So also the identified changes were to reduce the number of permit levels from 6 to 5, and we'll look at those levels. The titles of those descriptions did change from like assistant teacher, associate teacher to an ECE 1, early childhood educator 1, early childhood educator 2, and early childhood educator 3, and then 2 levels for the administrative, early childhood administrator 1 and early childhood administrator 2. So those were some of the changes that took place. The scope of authorizations were updated, and we'll take a look at what that means. There were increased requirements for many levels of the permit. And there also are some entry level pathways that are built in within the new permit structure. There was also an introduction of the limited term provisional certification, where an individual could get that level of the permit within a period of time, provided that they meet additional requirements. And those are at selected levels. And then looking at our next step, regulations approved by the Office of Administrative Law, which I talked about, um, and also addressing areas of emphasis, special education, infant, toddler, bilingual, expanded learning has been a part of our current permit. We don't anticipate that will probably continue for the renewal process. But we're very interested in incorporating all of those specialization or emphasis areas in our professional growth hours. And then also review of our alternative pathways. And so those are some of the things that we want to do next steps that we're already planning for in the future. So let's talk about each one of the ECE levels. ECE 1 is that supportive role, that it would be very similar to our assistant teacher position currently that we have with the current permit, which would require 12 units of early childhood or child development units in those three content areas: child growth, child, family, and community, and then programs or curriculum. Also, there is a provisional for the ECE 1 where an individual can come in with 6 units of those core units, and then they would be allowed an additional 2 years to complete their additional two courses, which would complete their 12 units. We also have embedded within there the Child Development Associate credential with that. So anyone that has their CDA, that would meet that requirement. Keep in mind, this is again a supportive role. So they are not with 12 units, they are not the teacher of record. So for early childhood educator two, they are the teacher of record, meaning they are the primary teacher in the classroom. That primary teacher is responsible for planning curriculum, for communicating with parents, for assessments, all of the work that goes on in the classroom. That teacher would be responsible for that. So the requirements for that are an associate's degree in early childhood education, child development, or an associate's degree if it's outside of that subject area, 24 units in early childhood education or child development. Also, there is a provisional certificate available for an individual that does not have their associate's degree. They can get the ECE2 with 24 units in early childhood education. They would have 2 years to complete their associate's degree from that time. And if that 2 years expires and they're not quite there in terms of earn their associate's degree, if they're within the completion, could complete that within a year, they could apply and get an additional third year to complete their associate's degree. As a requirement for the teacher of record too, there is clinical practice, which is the practicum course that a lot of the community colleges offer. Some four-year institutions also have that clinical practice or practicum. And typically that is a part of the 24 core curriculum alignment project coursework. So a lot of the community colleges, when they talk about the 24 core, that's aligned with our CAP courses, and the practicum or clinical supervision is a part of that. But in addition to that, the individual would need to have a 2-unit adult supervision course, and that is required for the EC2. And the rationale for that is anyone that's working as a teacher of record will have an assistant or somebody in the classroom to support learning, could have more than that, and needs to be able to communicate and work with adults effectively within the classroom. So the early childhood 3 is educator three is that mentor or coordinator of curriculum and staff development. That could be at an individual site, it could be within a full program, a district program, whatever that may be. But they would have the ability to oversee that mentoring or coordination of a curriculum and staff development piece for either at a site or at that program level. So the requirements for an early childhood educator three is a bachelor's degree in early childhood education or child development with 24 units, or or if it's not within that, then it could be a bachelor's degree in another subject area with 24 units in early childhood child development. So clinical practice is also required as a part of the program, and adult supervision units are also required. So as you can see for ECE1, an alternative pathway is that provisional or the Child Development Associate's credential. For ECE2, the alternative is the provisional and also an individual that has an associate's outside of child development. And in ECE3, same with the bachelor's degree if they're outside of that. So there are some alternative qualification pathways available. And the commission, as I mentioned before, is interested in discussing further additional pathways for the child development permit. So the revised permit level for the EC Early Childhood Educator Administrator 1 and 2, the ECA 1, this is where they would be able to supervise at a single site. And so the educational requirement for this is an associate's degree in early childhood child development or an associate's degree outside of that subject area with 24 units in early childhood child development. There's clinical practice as a requirement for that, as the other levels are. Adult supervision, in addition to that, are ECE administration units, and there are 6 units that are required for this level. So there's also a experience part in addition to the practicum, 1 year full-time teaching experience with children that are ages 0 to 8 while holding a permit, or they also can, if they have experience as like at a private school and they don't have a permit, as long as they have that year of full-time teaching experience. In addition, 100 days of supervisory experience with children ages, we say students, but it's children ages 0 to 8 within the last 4 years. So that is currently a requirement in relationship to our current regulations with that. So for the early childhood administrator two, which is really that multiple site supervision, that's the program, like our equivalent to our currently our program director. It's a bachelor's degree in early childhood education or child development, or a bachelor's degree in another subject area with 24 units in early childhood education, child development, clinical practice and adult supervision, and those 6 units of administration, and then 1 year of full-time teaching experience with children ages 0 to 8, and the 100 days of supervisory experience. And I just want to mention the supervisory experience, meaning if you have an assistant in your classroom that you're helping to guide their work, that's what that means, that you are supervising the work of individuals that are within the classroom structure here. So we wanted to be able to also assure those that individuals that have earned a child development permit and you currently hold that permit, that per statute, current permit holders retain the ability to renew their permit under the existing requirements for the duration of their careers, ensuring that continuity and recognition of those individuals' qualifications. So if you already have earned a permit, you have rights to that permit. If it's not, if your job requires you for it to be current, then it needs to be current, meaning that you would need to do those professional growth hours and keep it current. If you decide to exit the field for any part of time, you can come back, you can apply again to be able to renew that permit. There is a one-time 2-year extension to meet the professional growth hours. And but if you've used that extension, then you would have to meet those 105 hours of professional growth before it would be active. So once the revised child development permit matrix is established in regulation, and all individuals entering the field, entering the workforce, seeking to add a new permit or moving to a different permit level will be required to meet the requirements in place at that time. So we just wanted to be sure that everyone understands if you have a permit, then you have rights to that permit. But if you don't have a permit and you're still in process, you want to be able to complete that permit as soon as you can. There will be a transition period once the regulations are in place, but we want to assure that we will there will be some time. We haven't determined the amount of time for that, but if you're moving towards that, then we just encourage you to continue to move towards that to be able to earn that permit. In addition, we just wanted you to be aware that in September of 2024, AB 1930 was passed that allows an individual that holds an associate teacher permit to renew their permit via professional growth hours, because the requirement prior to that was that you would have a 10-year period of time to be able to bump up to that teacher level. So that requirement is no longer in effect because of AB 1930. But again, an individual must also renew their professional growth hours, and they can continue to renew that every 5 years and hold that associate teacher permit. So if you're interested in the details on that, you can click the link on the coded correspondence with this. And there are also there are resources here if you want to contact certification specifically about that. Huh? Oh, sorry about that. I think it clicked. Okay. Let's see. All right. Sorry. Clicked too many times here. So the AB 753 credential information alert. So there was an assembly bill that was signed in 2025. So this particular alert means there is the creation of a new independent care emphasis authorization for existing child development assistant teacher permits. So an individual can apply for this and they can actually serve in the classroom um, as an assistant teacher to independently supervise children. And I think it's 120 minutes per day for a limited time throughout the day. And it's valid for 2 years and it's non-renewable. So if you want more information on that, you can actually click on the link here, credential information alert for that. So we also have some CTC ECE resources. We have our early childhood education page, and we also have just wrapped up our coded correspondence, the amendments to Title V regulations. I left it on there because there is information about a public hearing that's coming up. It's actually coming up next Wednesday. And if you're interested in giving public input to the child development permit regulations and what I just described, then there will be information that will be going out from our office, hopefully tomorrow, that will give you information on how to be a part of that and to make public comment on that. Also, we encourage you to subscribe to our early childhood education news. And we have a monthly newsletter that comes out, gives you all of the latest and greatest from regarding the permits and our PK3 credential. For those that are interested at the institution level, subscribing to our educator quality branch news, which comes out weekly. So any changes will be highlighted or updated in that. But that is broad. That is not just early childhood. That is early childhood and beyond, to infinity and beyond, right? And if you are interested in contacting the early childhood team, our email is there. We look at that on a daily basis. We respond quickly. We also have two engagements that we do monthly, our early childhood educator community circle, and that's really an amazing time where we have topics, we have presentations on those topics, and it's an opportunity for folks to share their thoughts, ideas, and networking during that time. And that's on the first Monday of every month from 1 to 2:30. And then we also have our early childhood educator office cafe. And that office cafe is during lunchtime. It is really our office hours, but we have a topic that we discuss and we want to hear from our ECE workforce on that. And so we are engaged with that time. And then we also send out a follow-up email for those that sign up on the topic and what the discussion was about. And we have an opportunity for individuals to ask us any question with the commission during that time. So we encourage you to contact our credentials team, career guidance that can give you specific guidance if you're interested in obtaining a permit or moving to the next level. They can guide you through that process specifically. And we really encourage you to take advantage of our career counselors that are very knowledgeable about the permits and can really advise you at that level. So those are our resources. That's our official presentation. So I'm going to stop sharing and really open it up for questions, comments, anything that you would like to, yeah, like to share or questions that you have. Are there any questions or comments? I mean,
Can we just unmute or do we type it into the chat?
you can
Yes.
unmute or type it into the chat. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. I just had two questions, more clarification. Number one, if I understood correctly, for current permit holders, we can keep that current permit and we're sort of grandfather in, so we just keep renewing moving forward under that current
Yes.
permit?
Yes, yes. We don't really use the term grandfathering. It's more of that you have rights to that permit. So you can
Got it.
continue to renew, right? And if you're in a position that requires it, you want to make sure that you're up on renewing it within the time frame that you need to.
Okay, and that cycle will continue to be 5 years, just like it is now?
Every 5 years, correct. Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, second question. If, oh, actually, do you know when you guys are projected to roll out the new matrix or the new requirements?
We do not know the exact date. We are where we're at in the process is we just finished our 45-day public comment period. We have our public hearing that's coming up next Wednesday, where we will be available. During that public hearing, we will hear from the public, and we've already gotten responses during that 45-day window that we'll be providing responses to. And then the next step would be for all of that to go to the commission, which will be presented in the month of June. And if it is approved at the commission, it will go back to the Office of Administrative Law. If there are any changes that are recommended that were recommended as a part of public comment, those changes will be made and resubmitted to the Office of Administrative Law. That could be 6 months to a year. So we are anticipating sometime within 2027 that we will have completed that process. And then the commission has yet to determine what that transition time will look like. And, if that's a year, 2 years, whatever that may be, then we would notify the public at that point. And those that, currently have permits continue to renew, but those that are really trying to get on the current permit matrix transition time for them to be successful with that. And then also those that want to upgrade, that they have adequate notice with that.
Wonderful. And then one more clarification question. So as long as we don't upgrade, we get to keep the same permit because we have rights to it, correct?
Correct. Yeah. And you're authorized to do the various jobs that you're currently doing.
Wonderful. And then are you able to speak on the practicum hours and the impact, or would that be a different conversation that's not necessarily related to this?
No, the practicum hours are related to the child development permit
Yeah.
matrix. Yes.
So it would, they are going to increase at that point as well, correct?
I believe I think I'm going to have Renee address that.
Yeah, Lupe, I think you might be okay. So I think you might be referencing possibly what's related to our PK3 early childhood education specialist instruction credential. So, like, practicum is something that is related to the matrix, but the number of hours of practicum, that is something that's determined by the campus. It's determined in terms of how many units are associated with the class, but there has been some push for practicum to shift into a 100-hour model because for students and people who are considering pursuing the PK3 credential at some point in their career, if you have you're able to get certain equivalencies in terms of that final 600 hours of student teaching you do. And so if you've already done practicum in 100 hours or whatnot, so the when we talk about that, the practicum hours and the shift, like I said, that's a local control, but there is some pressure to go in that direction because for people who choose a PK3 credential pathway, later on, it may help them if they have, if they have their practicum in a 100-hour format or a 200-hour format, like if there's two different levels of practicum, there'll be different types of offerings. So I hope that helps, Lupe.
Yeah, it was regarding the increase of practicum hours. I teach practicum, so I was just, I've been keeping an eye on that. So I'll just continue to follow that
Lupe,
conversation. Thank you
also
so much.
at any time, if
Huh?
you ever want to meet, please just reach out. I'm prior faculty before I joined the commission, so we want to support everybody, but I know especially as faculty, as these transitions are happening, especially because there's soft dates and like it's not like there's hard dates on everything. It can be a challenge. So if we can be a resource, please feel free to reach out to Dr. Keeler or myself at any time. We are here in partnership, and we're here to be as supportive as we can be.
Wonderful. I'll be reaching out. Thank you so much, Renee. I appreciate your time and help.
And we do anticipate, Lupe, the practicum courses moving to 100 hours because that is within our permit new or revised permit structure. So there's already discussions behind the scenes about that happening at some point. So
Okay, perfect. Thank you again.
you're welcome. We do have a question from Nancy in the chat. Will there be more workshops about the new permit changes? And will we have access to this recording? I believe you will have access to this recording. Yes, we will be
Yes.
going.
Mhm.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Leah. We will be doing more trainings in relationship to the child development permit. We have a whole technical assistance plan that we have developed. And we are anticipating creating a hub with all of our resources. That document that I showed you, the actual matrix, we will be producing those documents with the commission seal on those, as well as trainings along the way. And for those professional growth advisors, we anticipate doing ongoing training for that. So we anticipate a lot that's going to be coming up in that. So we'll be doing events like this, but there'll be a central place where individuals can go and get the resources that they need for that. But we cannot, we can't jump the gun until these are actually coded into law. So we're doing all the pre-planning behind that. Um, we have another question here. Can you clarify if the new policy only applies to that one associate teacher permit level or all permits? So, Elvia, can you clarify that? The new policy that you're referring to.
I think, Elvia, I hope I'm speaking correctly, and please feel free to chime in, but are you talking about the renewal and how it changed with AB 1930? Because I think, okay, so, okay, great. So that policy was only at the assistant teacher level, right, Dr. Keeler?
It
And
was.
so the other permit levels did not require somebody to go back to school to get additional schooling. But at that one level of permit, it did. And when AB 1930 came in, it changed it. So that way, that one level permit is now in line with all the other permits. So I hope that makes sense, Elvia. So it wouldn't be the rest of them because it was only the one that had the piece that needed to be fixed. So now that it's fixed by AB 1930, they all align in terms of what the renewal requirements are.
Great. Also, there is a session on the PK3 ECE instruction credential, and that's at 4 o'clock today. Um, yeah. So, other questions? We still have a little bit of time here. We'll have about 6 minutes.
Hi, will there be any future webinars on the special education credential?
The special education credential, I don't know specifically on the special education credential. There are resources on the commission website. Is there a particular area of webinars that you're interested in?
Yeah, the prerequisite courses. I'm only missing two upper division and the CSU I'm looking at states that you have to have those courses before you enter the program.
Okay. So I would encourage you to talk with a career counselor with the commission and just clarify. They can look at your coursework. They can look at what institutions are, what are the requirements, and then can guide you along that process.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Tia, by you also mentioning this at Teach for LA, I'm gonna make point that Leah Martinez, who's one of the main coordinators and the mind behind Teach for LA, is on our session right now. So maybe Leah, maybe this can be consideration for a future conference that they could be a specialized breakout session directly on the special education credentials. And I'm happy to offer, if it would be appropriate, Leah, we could have
Definitely.
one of our special education specialists from the commission do that type of session if that would be of service.
I think so, Renee. Thank you so much. Yeah, we will definitely reach out to Renee for our next Teach for LA. So watch out for that announcement.
Excellent.
Hello, do we still stay here for the next the 150 webinar workshop for making it work for classrooms?
No, actually, you have to go back into the website and register into that specific session so that you can get the link for that specific session, Wendy. And I'm
I did
sure Nicole sent all of the announcements for the upcoming sessions also.
I didn't receive the link. I received the link for this one, but I didn't receive the link for that one, but I did register. I have the confirmation that I registered. I just didn't
Okay.
receive the link for the 150.
So let me post again the link for all the sessions that are upcoming so that you can register there. Yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for attending today. I know that all of you are in different places of this journey, and we are here to support you. We are here to help you understand better where our current permit structure, where we're going in the future. All of us that are on the ECE team, all three of us, have deep experience in early childhood education, and we understand very practically where our workforce is. And we just applaud you for the work, and we wish the best for each one of you as you continue to pursue your careers in early childhood education. And we're just so thankful that you're here with us. And you guys have an amazing day.